Hello, this is Eric Miscoll, and welcome to the Eric Miscoll Show. We're at SMTAi International 2019 in lovely Rosemont, Illinois, right next to O'Hare Airport. So it's at the end of day one here at the SMTAi show. Kind of usually a good regional show here in the United States. I've invited a few colleagues just to kind of get together and talk about, kind of our observations. What did we notice today? What's happening? Any kind of trends impacting us in the industry? So let me do it. By the way, there's no. I'm talking to the audience here. This isn't. Our venue tends to be kind of a little irreverent and a little unscripted. So I'm not sure where this is going, and I'm okay with that. Which is why we invite interesting people to sit here. No pressure. Thanks, Mike.
You're welcome.
So let me do a quick introduction and then kind of kick this off. So with ASM, we have Mark Ogden. With Universal Instruments, we have Dave Vicari. And at the end, as always, with Scoop, we have, what's the Scoop? We have Phil Stoughton. So let's just, I've walked the floor here today, kind of looked around. It seems, general impression was there's nothing really new being announced by anybody, right? There's nothing, no whiz-bang new equipment. If I'm misstating something that you guys are doing, correct me. It seems like those are maybe held off for a Productronic or a Apex show here later in the year. People, it is a trade show, so we always have to take that with a grain of salt. That there's always some optimism in the air, right? And that influences the conversations. Hearing, some EMS, some named EMS are walking the floor. People are having some good conversations. So it seems like, even though there may not be something new, there certainly is activity going on in the floor. So, thoughts, observations, anything?
Well, I think you're right, Eric. We're only a couple of months away from Productronica. I'm sure we're going to see some really cool new things being launched at that show. This is a regional show. We are in a little bit of a strange economy right now. There's both opportunities where I think you're going to see some further or new facilities being built in North America, but you're also going to see some uncertainty because of trade, tariffs, and those kind of things. So you got a little bit of both going on at the moment. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, all those good things. So you got a little of both.
Yes,
right.
That's right. Yeah.
I think Productronica has got a lot to do with it for this particular show. I think it's a little bit quieter than we would have liked to have seen it. But on the equipment side, yes. But on the process development, perhaps, and on the technology side, I think there's a lot of things going on here at the show, which we shouldn't just only focus on what's going on down here. We also need to focus on what's going on upstairs as well, right? And yeah, regionalization show. This is the biggest show for SMTAi. Right, with respect to what they do a lot of local shows as well. But Productronica, I think, is taken away a little bit, and I think Apex is also very early coming up this year.
I think it is early.
I think it's a little bit earlier, so people are looking at that again and saying, what do I do? When do I wait for it or not? Things like that. Tariffs, tweets, yeah. It's all plays into a role there.
Yeah, and I think we're in a kind of, as Mark mentioned, a strange place with the economy at the moment. There's a lot of uncertainty in the market, and that's partly due to tariffs and tweets and trade wars. But there's some softening going on. There's some changes going on in terms of what's going on in the economy. And when you walk the floor and this isn't going to be the show that someone announces a new product. But when you look at hardware, anyway, in the industry, it's pretty incremental in its development at the moment, and a lot of it is, what can you do with that hardware? How can you layer that up with software? What can you get in terms of process and performance benefits as a result of that? And I know, for example, ASM have just acquired an MES company, and you're seeing more and more collaboration between the hardware companies and software companies. Mm-hmm. And I guess, to a degree, that's where the magic happens.
the software,
Well, when it all comes together.
when it all comes together.
When it all comes together.
You'll see a lot of that going forward is people trying to make their factory more efficient, people having less operators, less people to train, more guidance for people on the shop floor, and just trying to be more efficient. But any step function in growth in our industry, I think you're going to see that after 5G gets put in, right? So once you have 5G networks in our industry, there will be more products that can be built that connect to 5G.
Yeah.
Electronics products, and that we'll yet to see where those products get built, but that's only going to be beneficial. But I would say the next year or so, we have to ride this out and see where it takes us as far as trade and such goes. Then I think you'll see a lot more technology drivers helping expand the industry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there'll be more products, but as far as new equipment, new things coming on the market to handle those additional products, I don't know that that's coming as well. You've got to remember our industry is relatively mature at this point in time, right? Especially surface mount itself. How much more new stuff is coming out? How much more can you shrink the pitch on a device or something like that, right? We're all pretty good at what we do. It comes down to vision and software, and then maybe doing more with less, or making the existing equipment do something that it was never intended to do. And I think that's where some of the innovation will come in.
It's kind of interesting because I was talking to Eric off camera before, and one of the challenges I think with the hardware, and particularly where you guys are in the kind of largest part of the hardware spend, is avoiding commoditization. You know, the challenge of differentiating when the market is so mature becomes harder and harder, and then you know, cost becomes an issue and price becomes an issue, and it's a different challenge. Are we still able to avoid that, Mark?
I think so, because although the industry is pretty mature, there are only a few companies that do this type of stuff and do it well, right? We are all sitting here at the trade show, right? And I think the market is going to be ever expanding in the amount of volume of product that is produced. You're always going to need equipment, and that equipment has to slightly improve each year with respect to accuracy, with respect to design. As was mentioned before, there will probably be some new product design that we have to adapt the equipment to. So I don't see it becoming a race to the bottom on commoditization, to be honest with you.
No, that's simple.
Yeah, and you know, when we were talking before, I mean, the whole idea of the hardware, it's software is the big buzz. Is with Industry 4.0. It was at the shows for the last year and a half, 2 years, really, right? I mean, everybody's talking about that, but that's to make the hardware more efficient, right? That's not it's not like Microsoft doing this stuff. And you know, I used the term before. You know, that's the hardware, the software without hardware is like Christmas without Santa, right? I mean, you kind of need that. You need that vehicle to do that. But you know, it's interesting. I did the piece for EMS Now where we talked to OEMs, asked them about Industry 4.0 a month ago, and the response was, we'll see, right? But this whole industry is built up to service ultimately the OEMs in building their products, and so their view of that was a kind of let's wait and see what kind of how it develops. So I'm actually, you know, curious, optimistic, but or hopeful, I should say. I don't know if optimistic's the right term. But what's going to really happen in the next few years? I mean, we've touched on tariffs. That's having an impact, right?
Tariffs have a very big impact, and they're very immediate as well. And there's a lot of companies doing different types of things to try and get around the tariffs, right, et cetera. So they're looking at being very creative to market themselves and being able to get hardware where they need to get it. Right, so that's a very important factor for things.
Does that mean you guys have to be more agile? Does that mean you guys have to stock up here and be able to deliver quickly? Is demand kind of late and urgent at the moment?
Yeah, so what is the demand? So the demand kind of fell off this year, right? I think we all know that, right? So it really trailed off. So when the demand does come back, we better be able to respond very quickly for, you know, putting the materials in the right places at the right cost, which I think is going to be very interesting.
Yeah, in our industry, we've always had to follow where the customer is. So we have to go where the customer goes.
Yeah.
So the customer decided several years ago that a lot of high-volume manufacturing was going to be in one part of the world, and more complexity manufacturing and just-in-time was in a different part of the world. We have to have the right equipment to be able to be installed and serviced in those places, and we'll continue to do that.
Yeah.
So we'll just have to wait out these tariffs. People are not going to move their whole supply chain overnight. So that's why the uncertainty's here, isn't it? It's because let's see what's going to happen.
Yeah, I don't even think they're going to be able to move it over a year.
Over 10 years, maybe,
It's going to be very
yeah.
difficult to make that change happen. But you also have to remember the other side of the equipment is the process and what the machines are doing and the materials that they're working with. And I think that has a large effect on what's going to happen in the industry as well, with the complex stuff or the easy stuff, things like that. It's going to be very dynamic, I think.
Yeah, and I think that's that requirement for extra agility, and maybe Industry 4.0 is one of the components. That's one of the components of Industry 4.0.
Yeah, and I like to think that the regionalization play is kind of settled down, that we're not going to chase low-cost labor rates anymore. I think that's kind of that's played itself
You
out.
think that ship sailed? You think that lemming-like rush to China?
Sub-Saharan Africa or certain parts of the Middle East.
Or Vietnam or India now?
That's
Or
where the low labor rates, I mean,
Yeah.
that's what you want. But I think people have gotten smarter and are looking at the total proposition. And they're just
yeah, and
chasing
proximity to customer, proximity to design and development, those kind of issues.
markets for that. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Plus, you have the political climate as well that contributes to a lot of different things. And with that said, where do you move? Where you thought it was safe, but maybe it's not. And it doesn't only happen in one part of the world, it's actually everywhere. But everywhere doesn't get the notoriety that certain other places do.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Well
So
said.
it's a thing to consider.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts here? Any other good jokes, or you got any? Mark?
I think that's about it. Thank you very much.
I don't think you want to hear those.
We do. We just can't publish them. So
Overall, though, for the day, I thought it was a relatively good day. With the traffic that came through on the floor, I thought it was okay.
Yeah.
Some people were saying it's down, others were saying it was up, but I think that for us in our little corner back there, I thought it was pretty good.
But you also didn't bring any equipment to the.
No, we didn't. We chose to focus not on the hardware, but on the process and the materials and the supporting things for this particular show.
Yeah.
We're going to do something more maybe at Prototronica, things like that.
Yeah, and Mark made a very good point that this show is as much about the conference as it is about the expo floor. And there's been some great papers, and when good papers are on, people are going to go listen.
Absolutely.
That is what happens.
That's
Yeah,
what
the
happens.
keynote today, he was fantastic. If you
Yeah,
saw
and
him.
I think you just have to be prepared. This isn't necessarily just an equipment show. Because of the conference, you're going to have a good mixture. You'll have some local people who are looking for equipment from this area, this part of the US, and you've got people from almost all over the world flying in for the technical papers, because that really is first class.
Yeah.
That is the
yeah.
push of this conference.
Exactly, yeah.
And
Yeah.
they did say that they built in white time, as they called it, for those people from the conference to come to the show floor this year, where I guess in the
Yeah.
past they haven't done that so much.
Those runs of people every now and again,
Right.
which is, not too bad.
Well, good. Well, thank you. We'll wrap this here after day one. Thank you for sharing. For those watching, thank you. If you like this, let us know, and we'll do it again another time, I hope. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks
Thanks,
much.
Rich.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.